Welcome to the 2024 Scioto County Volunteer Training. I'm Joe Williams, one of your 4-H educators.
And I'm Abby Moen, the other 4-H educator here in Scioto County.
So what we're going to do today is we are going to go through our annual volunteer training with you in this virtual format. So bear with us. We may have a few glitches here and there as Abby and I are recording this, but we have some PowerPoints with lots of information that we're going to share with you. We have an agenda up here. This is kind of what we're going to cover for the day. So we'll have a county review and updates. Then every year the state is asking us now to cover competencies with our volunteers. So we are going to cover effective club communications and engaging youth with Ohio 4-H resources as those competencies. And then the other part of your mandatory annual training is the youth activity policy training, which is that child protection training that you've been used to getting the last several years.
So after you've watched this recording, we may request some sort of verification that you watch this, but this will complete your annual training. This is going to be the same items that we cover during our volunteer conference, which you are welcome to come to on March 26th. But this will be our two options for getting your annual training done this year.
And once you've completed it, when we do send you the verification, whether that comes through email or a quiz or a link to click at the end, once you've done that, I would still advise calling the office and double checking to make sure we have received that, just to cover all the bases, to make sure that you've got your training covered and we've actually gotten that verification from you. So with that, go ahead.
Yeah. So we're first going to take a look at 2023. So we really had a great year. Our year-end survey showed that overall, again, people were pleased with our program, pleased with our clubs. Thank you so much for all the work that you guys are doing. It truly makes a huge difference on the many, many kids that we have. So just looking at our numbers, we had 55 community clubs last year. We had 934 youth members enrolled, so that's including our Clover Buds. 217 volunteers, 92 youth attended Canner's Cave 4-H camp, and we were able to reach over 35 kids in our county through various programs, including what we do in our schools. And then we also had 37 junior fair board and team leaders.
So some of our successes in 2023, in 2022 and 2023, we have had the luxury of having Rachel Sloan serve in our office as a 4-H program assistant, focusing on STEM programs. With Rachel and the grant that has funded her position, we've been able to add a lot of extra things to our plates, and that has included a lot of STEM programs in the schools as well as at the fair. So last year, if you remember seeing a bunch of activities going on in the 4-H building during Fair Week, that was Rachel doing a lot of fun stuff with not just 4-H kids, but any kid from the community who wanted to take part in those activities. We also added the ag and animal experiences at the fair. We got a lot of positive comments on those additions to the fair. Our 4-H committee was very generous in helping fund that ag experience. And then many of our volunteers and 4-H members were gracious enough to host those animal experiences in the barn. So we're very thankful for those, and we're going to continue those in 2024.
And Joe, just along those lines too, we forgot to mention a huge thank you to our Market and Breeding Animal Committee, who sponsored the livestock judging contest. That was a really big success. We had a lot more kids participate than we expected, which was great, except for those of us who had never scored those before. That was a lot of fun. So we're looking forward to having that again this year and expanding that. And then also to our horse committee who held the mutton busting contest. So we know that that was a huge hit with our community as well. So we didn't add a bullet point for those, but we definitely appreciate the work our volunteers did to make those happen for our kids.
Yeah, I think some of the new activities we added at the fair in 2023 were were great. They were great additions. We also had the watermelon eating contest this year too that I think
Yes, and
people
that was
enjoyed.
also led by some of our volunteers.
Yeah.
So
So those are all fun things that we've added. And, as you guys have ideas, the watermelon eating contest was just a family that came forward and said, we think this would be fun and would like to sponsor it. And so we went with it. Some additional successes were we had a huge ton of our folks who are being recognized for the things they did in 2023. Emily Scaff will be recognized next week, actually, here in March. She's going to be recognized as the Ohio 4-H Teen of the Year. We're really proud of Emily. She has been one super 4-H member for us through her 4-H career. And so we're really, really proud of her. We also have Lainey Johnson, who is being recognized with an Ohio 4-H Volunteerism Community Service Award at the Ohio 4-H Conference for her work with the Community Closet project that she and her family and club have started at the fair and continued to grow over the last several years. Greg Williams, who is on our 4-H committee and serves as a camp and teen leaders volunteer with us, is being recognized as an Ohio 4-H Young Alumni Award winner. And there's only one person recognized for that Young Alumni Award, one person recognized for that Community Service Award, and one teen recognized in the whole state for those awards. So it's pretty huge thing for our people to be recognized. Additionally, our 4-H committee is being honored with an Ohio 4-H Innovator Award for their work with the Ag Experience area in the 4-H building. And then finally, Leighton Mullins and Addison Mullins were both recognized in 2023 and attended the National 4-H Congress in Atlanta, Georgia in 2023 because they won Ohio Achievement Awards, Leighton for woodworking and Addison for creative arts. So we just want to say congratulations to all of our people. That's actually the biggest group of people recognized from one county anywhere in the state. Other counties may have one or two people recognized here and there, but Scioto County, our people were doing some really great things this past year. So we're really proud of them.
and it just also shows that we have some really great kids being role models in our program that we're just proud and thankful for. All right. So looking at our sale from last year, our livestock sale, we had a total of $288,600 brought in through our livestock animals with over 1,200 bidders. And you can see we had 242, those are animals items in the sale. That number was down a little bit from last year. But as you can see, comparing the two charts here, our sale overall still performed really well. Our kids still on average earned quite a bit for each of their animals. And so we just are so appreciative of those bidders and the people who are supporting those sales. Please, on this, I have to put a plug in. Please encourage your kids to send thank you notes to their buyers if they have not done that yet. It is super important. Our buyers definitely respond to those very positively. It means a lot to them that the kids take time. We still have some thank you cards here in the office if you need some, but please make sure your kids are sending those in your club. And if you have questions on the sale, please get a hold of us. I do believe that all of the exhibitors should have received their checks already with the list of their buyers and what each buyer donated to their animal. So the kids should all have those. What we have in the office is just the list of the buyers. We don't have the breakdown of, who donated what per se, but we do have the list of the buyers so that if you do need addresses and things like that, we will be happy to provide that because again, we would love you to send out those thank you cards. So now we'll move into 2024. So we wanted to just reiterate the ways that we can reach you. And so the first main way will be email via 4-H Online. And this is what it looks like. We wanted to put in a screenshot here to show. It comes up as RegMax 4-H. but you should just be able to search 4-H and find this. If you are not getting these, we've already sent a couple out this year. If you're not getting these, please get a hold of us. We do not have a way to know. We can go in and check if you've been able to open it, but whether or not it's actually coming to your inbox is kind of not something we can check. So please be looking for those. If you don't see them in your inbox or you're having trouble getting them, please give us a call. We also have the Scioto County newsletter that we've published for the spring this year. And this is going to be online. So we emailed that out through 4-H Online, but it's also going to be posted on our website. And then lastly, we have the 4-H page where we just pretty much everything we send out online through 4-H Online, we try to post to Facebook as well. But those are the three main sources. You're always welcome to give us a call. We would love to have questions versus any confusion. So call us, we can answer questions. Lacey's great on helping with 4-H Online questions, things like that. We do just want to mention though, that ultimately having the calendar and having those dates are the responsibilities of our families and volunteers to review those dates, know those dates. We will send reminders as we can. However, we just do not have the capacity to send it for every single thing, every single time, 3 months in advance, 2 weeks in advance, a day in advance. So we will publish all that we can, and we are constantly putting stuff out. But there are so many great things happening in our county and in our state. We know it can get lost sometimes. So please just look over things, check in if you haven't heard anything or you think something's missing. Please just call us and let us know. We want to just make sure you're getting all of your information so that nothing is lost in the limbo of things. Joe, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I was going to say the one thing that we do want you as volunteers, and then we want you to encourage your 4-H families, is to make sure that they have an accurate email address listed in 4-H Online, because most of our communications are coming through 4-H Online. We want to make sure that your email address, that is the family email address for that profile, is a working email. Also, something that I would highly recommend is if if you have a cell phone that receives texts, there is a place in 4-H Online to add your cell phone number and say that you can receive texts, because anytime we send an email out, we also check a box that says send a text reminder. And so that text reminder will go to your cell phone to let you know, check your email, we sent you an email. And I know it works because I get them. I have kids in 4-H and I have signed up for the text reminders, and it's really nice for me to actually see that it's working because I get that text on my phone, and then I can go check my personal email to make sure that the email actually went through. So I do highly recommend that you sign up for those text reminders and make sure that your email address is correct. And not just you guys, but that's one of the reasons we're training you guys on this, is so you can remind your families to make sure those things are accurate in the system.
Accurate and the one that you check, because we hear that a lot too. Oh, I don't check my work email or I don't check my personal one. Either way, we're happy to send them. We just want it to land in the right spot.
Yes.
All right, so for our livestock updates and reminders, so most of this came out last year, but we just wanted to add it again this year so that you're reminded of it. If you have any questions, you can get a hold of us. Market turkeys, we added to the livestock sale last year. We still have 12 slots open for that. We have market rabbits. We have 10 more slots open in the sale for that. So if you have kids interested in a market rabbit or turkey, encourage them to do those because there are more openings for them to join the sale. Our gilt show moved to the fair last year, so this would be our breeding hog project. And that show went really well. So we want to just encourage kids, if they want to bring their gilts to the fair, they can do that. And then our carcass contest will again be held the Saturday after the fair. So this year it's going to be held on August 17th. We will pick those animals up Saturday morning of the fair. So the final day of the fair, we will pick up those animals, weigh them in, and then they will be sent off to Circle M meats as they were last year. And then we'll go out for the contest the week later. We also have this little table here. It's actually pulled directly from the newsletter. So if you want to find it a little bit more details, or you can expand it a little bit, it can be found in that newsletter. The main thing to note is that where previously we have had sheep and goat weigh in on the first Saturday of May, we are pushing that back to the last Saturday of April. So you can see it's April 27th there. Our swine and beef breeding will still be online this year. It's really important that you tag your animals and you get them ID'd before those dates close. Those surveys or the link to submit your information will close on midnight of those dates. So please make sure that you have the tags in time, you get the animals tagged, and you get that uploaded, those pictures and information uploaded for us. Our rabbits are going to be out at the fair again on July 13th. And then our dairy cattle and those forms can come to extension. Our turkeys and our chicken forms can come to Ted Stidham at the Market Breeding Well Committee. So I apologize. I know I bounced around, but those, you guys can take a look at those. And if you have any questions, just let us know.
So for club updates in 2024, some of this stuff is not really new information. We just want to remind you of this is how our policy is. Some of these were changes that were made last year or a few years ago. We are not having any countywide fundraisers this year. Instead, we are encouraging our clubs to do their own fundraisers. And then from those fundraisers, a youth member fee of $5 per member per club will be sent to the Scioto County 4-H Committee Treasurer, Carolyn Garrett. And those are due by July 15th. So that means if you have a child that is in the Minford Bees Club and they take a sewing project and a cooking project, but then they are in the Hip Hops Club with a rabbit project, they will have to pay that $5 fee in each club that they're in, just like they have to attend 5 meetings for each of those clubs. So that $5 fee, then that just keeps it easier for club advisors to know that they have to pay the $5 fee for every member. And that includes Clover Buds and project members. So that $5 is due by July 15th. You can do countywide, or not countywide, club fundraisers to raise the money to pay those club fees. Or you can, just ask your families to pay the $5 per child. Whatever your club decides, that's something that's a great agenda item to add to your club's agenda and let the kids vote on. Again, this year we will be using club verification forms. Once our enrollments close on April 15th, we will run club rosters. Lacey runs those. Last year, I think April 15th was on the weekend. So she ran rosters, started running rosters Monday morning. And by Tuesday, we had all the rosters run and we mailed them. So by April 17th, all of those rosters were in the mail. And what we're doing is we're sending those rosters to you. We want you to then take them to a club meeting, have your families look at the roster, make sure that all of the information for their child is correct, that their child is enrolled in the projects that they are supposed to be enrolled in. Because our rules say that our clubs and our members can make additions, changes, and corrections up through May 1. So we are going to send these rosters to you. You will have until May 1 to make additions, changes, and corrections. So we want you to take those rosters that we have printed out and mailed to the organizational advisor, take them to a club meeting, have the kids and their parents verify that the information is correct. There will be a place on there to sign off and say that everything is correct on that form, and you will mail it back to our office. Then that's what we will use later in the summer when we send out an additional verification form to have you verify that kids completed those projects. And that's how we'll issue fair passes. That comes later. The April 15th to May 1, that time frame, this is to ensure that all of our kids are correctly enrolled in the projects they mean to be enrolled in. And that will help protect you as a volunteer if you have them review it, not just you review it, have them review it. And that protects you to make sure that kids are actually enrolled in what they're supposed to be enrolled in. It helps us so we know that kids are enrolled in the projects that they need to be enrolled in. And it helps the kids because that way they're not missing something. We understand that sometimes maybe mom signed the kid up. Mom didn't realize that dad was planning for the child to take a breeding animal, or they didn't understand the terminology, and so they signed them up for uh, pullets, and it really should have been broilers. So please have folks review that. You review it as well as a volunteer, double check things, sign off on that, and get it back to us by May 1. So if there are any things that need changed or corrected, we can get those changes made prior to that May 1 deadline. And that,
Just, oh,
yeah,
sorry.
go ahead.
I was just going to add that, and unfortunately, if we do not receive your club's form back by May 1st, we then we have to assume that everything that was on that list was correct and accurate, and that will be the projects that your youth are enrolled in. So if for some reason you have a member that didn't enroll or didn't enroll in the correct project, if it's after May 1st when we are notified, there's really nothing we can do about it. So it's super important that you're looking for those forms after our enrollment date. And if you don't receive that form, please contact us. We want to make sure all of our 55 clubs have their enrollment forms to look at, and all 55 clubs return them to us by May 1st. So we know everybody is good to go.
And even if everything on it is correct, we want you to sign off saying that it is correct and mail it back to us.
Yes.
That's
That's in the case that we don't get it back.
yes, if we don't get it back, then there's really nothing that we
Right.
have nothing to go on saying that you wanted a change to be made. And then we will have a project clinic for our non-livestock projects. We've had this for several years now. It will be on June 13th, just to let you all know to prepare, because that's a little earlier this year than it has been in the past. In the past, it was later in June, but this year our 4-H camps are all clumped together at the end of the month of June. So we will be doing that project clinic a little bit earlier. So please be sure to share that information as it comes out, and share that with your club members and encourage them to attend. Because one of the things that we have found, the kids who attend that project clinic are the ones who then tend to be even more successful when they come to project judging and go on to state fair judging. So please be sure to share that with your 4-H families.
All right, and we just had some reminders for you guys. If your club didn't have someone at the in-person training coming up, so I apologize. This was actually a form that we were just trying to make sure all of our club informations were correct in our club directory. So if you weren't able to submit that to us last year, or you have any changes of who to contact, where you guys meet, things like that, please let us know so that we can keep our club directory updated. We will have a Skillathon workshop again. For those of you who maybe aren't familiar with that, last year we kind of just opened up our Skillathon kits and let kids come and work with volunteers to practice that long before the fair or the actual Skillathon contest. And then we also had our study guides and books available at that. So we're going to do that again. That's going to be June 6th at the fairgrounds. Our camp registrations are coming up. So for beginner camp, that'll be May 27th. Teen camp will be June 6th, and junior high camp is June 9th. Those are all the registration due dates. We'll have Skillathon in July this year. So this is a little bit of a change. But again, like Joe said, with our camp schedule, we're trying to make sure that our kids can attend Skillathon and camp if they'd like. Please be sure to bring your book. Our project judging is going to be July 16th, 17th. With pre-registration information coming out later. Our award ceremony will be July 18th at 6 p.m. and then other awards at 7. And then our pre-fair advisor meeting will be Monday, July 29th at the fairgrounds again.
And all of this information is located in the pre-fair calendar that is on our website. So we know we're zipping through this pretty quickly in this PowerPoint, but it is all in our calendar. So you can log in and find that and print it out. These are our camp dates. They're also listed in our pre-fair calendar. We actually had a great group of kids at camp last year, 92 kids, I think it was. Our 4-H committee has the past few years been helping send our kids to camp, and we're very thankful for that support from them because that has allowed a lot of additional kids to attend camp and made it more cost effective for them. We've also had some additional grant dollars to help send kids to camp. And we do have some grant dollars again this year to help cover some of the costs of sending kids to camp. So with that being said, please, please don't assume that your 4-H members don't want to go to camp, because what we find is, as I'm talking to kids out and about, I'll ask them why they didn't come to camp and they'll say, I didn't know anything about it. Please tell your kids about camp and encourage them to come to camp, because the one thing that I know, having worked this job for 25 years now, is that 4-H camp makes a huge impact on the kids who attend. And if you don't believe me, you can find any of those kids in any of those pictures right there and ask them. They all, their experiences as campers and camp counselors has changed them for the better. So please encourage your kids to go and get that experience. And our camps are very, very affordable, and they're in a gorgeous setting. So I highly recommend 4-H camp to all of our families.
All right, please forgive me, Joe. I
That's all right.
need to fix something on our PowerPoint real fast. Yeah. Back to Shannon.
With this video that Abby and I are recording right now, this is something new that we're trying this year. So we hope that it provides a good option for our volunteers, as you guys are trying to. We know that everybody's schedules are busy, and so we're hoping that this option of having a video training is beneficial for some of you. Of course, you are still welcome to come to our in-person training, but we're hoping that this gives people an additional option to get their annual training and work better in their schedules. With that, we're gonna.
My screen right now.
Yes,
Okay,
effective
good.
4-H Club Communications is on
Yeah.
the screen.
Okay, perfect.
So we are going to transition into covering our first competency that we are supposed to cover, some annual competencies with our volunteers every year, as required by the state. And so this one is on effective 4-H Club communications. And if you want to flip to the next slide. Communication leads to community. That is, to understanding, intimacy, and mutual valuing. And I think that quote kind of sums up what we do in 4-H too. The communication that you provide to your 4-H members, or that you provide to us, or that we provide to you or the families, that is what leads to our sense of community about the 4-H program. So without effective communication, there is a disconnect, and things fall through the cracks. So we want to make sure that you feel like you are equipped to effectively communicate with your clubs. So what we want to know is, what do you think of when I say communication in the 4-H program? And I'm going to pause for just a second and let you ponder that. I know you're not going to answer me, but What do you think of? And when I was preparing this PowerPoint, sometimes when I think of communication in the 4-H program, I actually think of like the communication projects, the things the kids are doing. So we do have like health and safety speaking. We have those public speaking type of projects. We have demonstrations that kids can do. We have kids doing interviews at the fair or at with their projects before the fair. So that's one type of communication. But the other type of communication that we're talking about for the purposes of this training is the type of communication from our clubs and the volunteers leading our clubs to the 4-H members and their families. So what is communication? It is the sending and or receiving of information. A lot of times when you say communication, people think of just talking or speaking or writing. But one of the other things that is really important when it comes to communication is actually listening. And sometimes we forget about that part. So the sending and receiving are both vitally important for good communication. So with that, we've got 10 tips for better communication. And so these things are hopefully tips that will help you connect better with your families and then have a more successful project year in your club. So the first tip is to get to know your families. At the beginning of the year, maybe you have a parent and family meeting at the start of the year. So that way you're not just talking during club meetings. A lot of times it's the kids that you are meeting with, and the parents may be in the back of the room chit-chatting, or they may drop the kids off and come back and pick them up. But at the beginning of the year, it's probably a good idea to have a parent and family meeting so you can go over some expectations with those parents as well to help them understand the information that you're trying to share. Establishing clear lines of communication is important. Those clear lines of communication, in order to do that, a lot of times you have to find out what works best. So what works best for you as the volunteer and what works best for your club members. So, and it may be different in every club. Some clubs may make telephone calls, personal calls to people. Some clubs may set up some sort of a group message system. Some clubs may have Facebook communications. Whatever it is that you determine works best for your club, you've got to make sure that it works for everyone. You can't set up a Facebook group and do all your communicating through Facebook if some of the people don't have Facebook. So just make sure that whatever you're using works for everyone and everyone is on the same page. The fourth thing, we want you to provide families with a calendar or schedule for the year in advance at the beginning of the year, so they know basically when meetings are going to be. So maybe your meetings are the third Sunday of the month at 2 p.m. at, such and such community center, or maybe you meet at different people's houses. But if you give people a calendar, they can plan ahead. My own children, when my kids were younger and I had to get them to club meetings, I was always appreciative of our club setting dates in advance. So that way I could look at my calendar and know, okay, I've got to get my kids to these meetings on these dates because we're going to be at 4-H camp for 3 weeks in June. We're not going to be able to hit any of the meetings during those 3 weeks. So providing those calendars is important. Listen, listen, listen. And that's what I just mentioned a minute ago. Listening to your members and their families, so you're not always just delivering information to them, but also listen to them, see what they need, what helps them, what's beneficial to them when you are communicating with them. Listening is very important when it comes to communicating. Send out meeting reminders. If you have like a text group or something like that, even though you've got the calendar, that's great. If you can send out a reminder at some point, that's beneficial too. You're probably going to get a better response from people if you remind them about meetings, or if you make a post on social media or whatever it is, that will help them. Next. One thing that I think is always really important, and sometimes we forget this, but explain 4-H jargon, lingo, policies, expectations. We have so many things in the world of 4-H that are, if you're brand new to 4-H and you've never been in 4-H, even when I started this job, and I mean, the first time I was going to swine tagging and they were talking about barrows versus gilts. I didn't know the difference in a barrow and a gilt. I'd never showed pig. I showed horses when I was in 4-H. I did not know the difference. I learned barrow is boy, gilt is girl. And that's how I remembered it as a brand new 4-H educator 25 years ago. But somebody had to explain it to me. So make sure that you explain the jargon and the lingo to your club members. Don't just assume that everybody in the room knows what you're talking about. We want to make sure that all of our 4-H members and their families feel welcome, and helping explain things makes them feel like they are more a part of the group. We want you to be honest and straightforward with people. If you know that there's an issue with something that a club member has done or is doing, we want you to be honest and straightforward with them. If, there's something has happened, and that's all we can do is be honest and straightforward with folks. We want you to encourage your members to communicate. Again, tell them to ask questions and to listen. Abby and I always say, we would rather you call us and ask us a million questions than to assume that you know something and assume wrong, and then we all have to deal with the aftermath of assuming something and it not being correct. So the same thing with your club. Please encourage your club members to ask questions of you, because if they know that they can ask questions, then they can clarify things and there won't be any miscommunication in your club. And then finally, the last thing I think that's really important is to reach out personally and ask your 4-H members to help with tasks, or ask them for information. If you see a kid that is really kid that's kind of quiet and sitting in the back of the room, maybe that's the kid that you reach out to and say, hey, why don't you help me by passing out these papers? Or because when you notice them and ask them to do things, that acknowledges them as people, and that goes a long way. So reaching out and personally asking people for help is just a great way to help develop relationships. So next, this slide in our interactive training, we're going to ask people how they communicate. So I will just ask you to think about, how do you communicate in your club? How would you fill those boxes in? Is it by using social media? Is it by text message? Is it by phone call? Do you still snail mail things to people? Do you have some other sorts of communication with your club members? How do you communicate? Next. So of course, then on our in-person training as well, we're going to have folks come up with one idea that they came up with, and then share if there were any new ideas. Some ideas that I would share would be, there are group messaging type of apps that you can download. We actually use a remind system that a lot of the schools use. We use that with our teen leaders, our junior fair board, and our camp counselors. There's an app called Group Me that some people use. There are other apps like that that people can download on their smartphone, and it makes it easy to communicate. Again, social media is one way that some of our folks communicate, or people may just have email. You know, you may send email to folks. You may have a group email list and send emails to people. So whatever works for you and your people. So then there is the other part of communication, and that is communicating with us. And so what we need for you is to be sure, and we kind of touched on this a little bit in the earlier update, but we need you and your families to make sure that you are checking and reading your email, and to make sure that the email in 4-H Online is correct. We want you guys also to be sure you are periodically checking our county website. We do post information there. Usually, if there's something important that we're posting on the website, we will also post on Facebook and say, please look to our website for this information, and share a link on Facebook to our website about the information that is on the website. We also need for you to read and explain rules and policies to your 4-H members and their families. Everybody, when they enroll, signs a code of conduct on in their online enrollment, saying that I have read and understand the rules and policies pertaining to being in 4-H and the projects I've enrolled in. And so you're signing that when you enroll. So we hope that you really do read and understand the rules and policies. And we ask that you please encourage your 4-H members to do that, because unfortunately, not knowing what a rule is not a valid excuse for breaking it. We want you to make sure that you share information with your 4-H members. A lot of times there may be something. Email has definitely improved our way of being able to communicate with our 4-H members and families, but there still may be times where we send information out to our volunteers and ask you to share it with your families. And even if we have sent an email to the whole 4-H online system, we know we can see in 4-H online, we can see who has opened emails. It allows us to see when someone opened it, what time they opened it. We can see that. And so from that, we know that not everybody is opening the email and reading it. So even though you think your family's got an email about animal tagging, we still want you to be sure you're sharing that information. You are still our go-between between us here at the office and the kids and their families. We need you to still share all that information with your members and their families to be sure that they have it and that they understand it. Because Abby and I cannot physically personally reach out by phone or text to every single kid in the 4-H program. And so that's where you guys are so important to us, is to make sure that not only do they have the information, but that they understand it. And if they don't understand it, then either you can help them by answering questions, or if it's something you don't know the answer to, then please feel free to direct them to us. Also, follow us on social media. If you have Facebook, our Facebook page is one of the ways that we share information. It's easy for us to pop it on there quickly and share it. So please follow us if you have it. And as always, I've said it already in this presentation, don't be afraid to ask questions. That's the best way for you to know that you're doing the right thing and that we're all on the same page. So please, please don't be afraid to ask questions. And with that, I think we are going to go into Abby's.
All right. So now we're going to talk about engaging youth with Ohio 4-H resources. So we know that you guys are already doing really cool stuff in your clubs. We see your service projects. We love seeing the little Clover Buds getting to do stuff. And obviously we see all of the great exhibitors at the fair. However, we did just want to make sure that we share all the resources available for you guys as volunteers to use with our kids. And why do we want to use these resources? It comes back to our 4-H thriving model. We know that 4-H is slated out in a way with our Cloverbud program moving into our youth program to align with youth development levels. And so through all of the projects and activities that you do in your club or we do as a county, our kids are able to have just really positive outcomes. This could be for maybe just the year that you work with the club. Maybe you have one member who doesn't really speak out towards the beginning of your meetings, but by the end of the season, when you guys are meeting together, they're leading the pledge and things like that. That can be just a success story of the development of one child just for the program year. Or as our motto is, making the best better. You can maybe have a kid who starts out not really understanding the project that they're taking and then ends up at state winning different awards. And so all of these resources are just intended to support you guys in facilitating the projects and the activities that you do with our kids. Oh no.
Uh-oh.
Let me jump. Hold on.
Bear with us.
So here we go. Can you see this now?
Yep.
All right, so we're going to start with the big book of 4-H Cloverbud activities. So if you're familiar with our meeting wheel, and I guess I should have thrown that in there as well, your meeting should really be separated out into a time of business, a time of activity and learning. And we really want those Cloverbuds pulled out of that business meeting. They are not developmentally ready for all of that. And so that's why they are not going to be competing in anything. They're not going to be completing project books, nothing like that as our normal youth program. So we have the Big Book of Cloverbud activities. If you're not familiar with it, this is what it looks like. Joe, off the top of my head, I want to say it's like $10 or
More than that. It's probably more like 20.
okay.
But it's
Oh,
got
I think
enough.
I think the package of the other books are $10. So
Yes. This, so it's got enough that it'll last you for years.
yes. And actually we use this for different teachings. I know that our friends at SNAP, they will use these activities as well to go into schools and teach preschools. So it's just a ton of different activities that are fun and positive, leader directed, all non-competitive. And so those are great, just quick activities. You don't even have to plan anything, just get that book and pick something out for it for your club meetings. We ultimately want to encourage creativity and play with our Cloverbuds. And so helping them to have self-understanding and build self-esteem, having those social interaction skills, decision-making skills, learning skills, and physical skills. And so this is out of our book of Cloverbud activities where they can be broken up into different categories. So if you guys maybe have a theme for your meeting, you could find something that would fit what you guys are doing for your Cloverbuds. We also have the My 4-H Cloverbud year, and I'm sorry, this is the set that I was talking about. And so this is just, it's not a project book, but it is just a record keeping book for the kids doing the Cloverbud program. It's great to have your Cloverbuds get this book. They can bring it to the meetings like the big kids have their books, and they can fill it in throughout the year with the different activities that you guys do with them. Couple other things that we want to know. So we have a state 4-H design team that works on Cloverbud specifically, and they put out a ton of information on the Cloverbud Connections page. And so what they have here is they have a meeting menu, which is basically a way for you to kind of handpick different a la carte sections or different activities, games, things like that, snacks that you guys can put together for your Cloverbuds. So that's all built in there for you. So what they wanted to share and what they shared with us is that, you know, a lot of times we go straight to Pinterest to think of what do we need to do with them. And Pinterest can be great, but sometimes some of those activities don't align with our 4-H model. And so having this on hand, you can come and find things quickly to be able to just deliver them to your club. They also have a blog, so you can subscribe to this blog and get different updates. I believe it's monthly updates on different resources and new information that they're putting out. Maybe it's an article like you see here, or it could be a new activity, something seasonal, things like that. They also have the reading adventures, and this is actually super cool because it's, again, all together for you. So it's a little one pager like this. It'll have a book that you can, I believe most of these can be found at your local library or of course Amazon, but it'll be a book and then they'll have a craft and then typically a game and a snack as well. So like I said, all very simple. You can just go in there, click one, and then you'll be ready to go for your meeting. They also have what they call click and do activities. And so these are, again, just something very quick and easy for you to print out and take the items that you need, and then you'll be ready to go for that meeting. So really eliminating a lot of this prep work through these great resources. Then they also have activity kits that you can still purchase. These are just different collections of Cloverbud activities and education pieces that you can do with them. And more resources, we have these choose and tell cards, which are actually great to use with kids of all ages. Joe and I actually, I think, have a set of these at the office. So if you're ever interested in looking at them when you're in, just let us know. And then we also have these Clover cubes, which are a little activity that you can do with your kids as well. And then last on our Clover Buds, we have the 4-H Cloverbud Engineering Adventure. So I think we've had a couple of Scioto County clubs participate in this, which is really exciting. It's just really a showcase. So there's a theme each year. So this year it's going to be Going Wild. And the kids can use a Lego set, essentially. There's some parameters on what they need to build. But this year they're going to be building a habitat. And then they go for a showcase. So again, none of our Cloverbuds will ever compete in anything, but they go and they can show off what they've created together. This is really just a way for them to incorporate the STEM components into our Cloverbud program, but also give them their own little highlight in doing an activity. And then, like I said, you're welcome to, we have some of these flyers. So if you're looking to recruit more Cloverbuds into your club, we have flyers that you can use to share those with other people to get Cloverbuds in your club. And then moving on to our youth members. Our youth members are eligible for participation once they are 8 years old and in the 3rd grade, or if a child is 9 years old. So Joe and I actually got the question today about this, and we had to just double check each other, but this is the way it stands. So 8 years old and in the 3rd grade, or any child 9 years and older. And once they're this age, they can participate in the pre-fair judging, the county fair exhibition, state fair exhibition and judging, and hold a club office. So everybody should have gotten these emailed to you. It is our family guides. If you aren't familiar with this, we have copies in the office. We would love to share with you. But it is a great tool to just look at all of those kind of guidelines of 4-H. So like those age determinations and things like that, and then give you all of the projects listings that we have. The other tool we wanted to share with you guys is the Project Central tool. So if you're not familiar with this, it is an online website that allows you to search projects and see all the details of the projects, and then even offer sample pages for the books. So if you look here, we have, like I said, you can search. You can see the search box there in the corner, and then it'll pull up all of them. Like if you were to put it in sewing, thought I had an example here, so I apologize. Here we go. So you can search for it, and then from there, you'll see this page that shows a project description here down at the bottom. It also adds comments, so family members of kids that have done this project before may post what they actually thought of the project book and how it worked for their child, and then an overall project rating. And then even seeing just the first couple of pages of the book. So maybe you're not quite sure if your child is ready for the intermediate level or if they should still be in the beginners. You can get on this and look at the book specifically to kind of get an idea of maybe where your child would fall. Maybe they do want to take another year of the beginner project, or maybe they're ready for that intermediate level. So that is a great tool to look through. And then obviously our project books. So we really want to encourage all of our families and kids to make sure that they have a project book for the projects that they're planning to complete. And we are checking these at project judging. So whenever you come for those non-livestock projects, the books will be checked. We check books whenever we weigh in the animals, and our 4-H committee has sponsored a $50 gift raffle. And sadly, we have had a couple of species that either didn't receive, no child received their money, or we only had 1 or 2 participants. So you had a 50% chance of winning that $50. So we really want to get back to our kids doing their project books, really filling those out. That is what makes the project, and that is what makes it the most educational and giving them the most opportunities to learn with the project book. We have them here in the office. We are fortunate in Scioto County to keep those in stock most of the time. So you can submit a project order to our office associate, Lacey, and she is great about getting those ready to go within the next couple of business days. They are cheaper in our office than they are online. So we really appreciate and encourage you to get them from us. Our county does get to keep a portion of these funds if you buy them from us. So if you're looking through the Project Central and you aren't sure about a project book, or you have questions about it, you can give us a call and we can go pull the book and talk through it with you. We're happy to help, but we really just want to reiterate, all of our kids taking any projects should be getting project books each year for those projects. And then we also offer a lot of clinics and workshops. So the state of Ohio offers different things. So like this is the Ohio Youth Poultry Clinic. It's coming up in April. And then they've also started publishing webinars. So there are things like that out there that Joe and I really try to push out on our Facebook page, things like that. And that's what we're saying. There's so much for us to push out all the time to you guys to make sure you see it. It's a great thing, but there's just a lot of resources going out there. So you can find those. I know that we both shared about these both items. So we have that coming up. Here for the county level, we have a rabbit clinic and a poultry clinic. We're splitting those up this year, but that will be us with Pike County out at Pike County Fairgrounds. And then what's an exciting thing happening, we have a clothing and textile clinic happening at the state. And I don't think I had a flyer for that out yet, but we can register for you that. It's going to be at the 4-H Center, I believe, on the 27th of April, and that's going to be held by our master sewer volunteers. And then our Market Breeding Animal Committee opted to do a livestock judging clinic this year. So June 1st, we're going to have a clinic in QA out at our fairgrounds. And then the project workshop, like Joe already talked about, will be happening in June. So we really try to promote any clinics or any webinars that we think are going to be helpful to our kids. And we also try to offer them as we can. And I will note, last year we had a club offer to do a carcass clinic, and that was great. We partnered with them and they put it on, and we just helped them as they needed to spread the word and things. So if there is something that your club would like to do like that, please connect with us, because again, there are so many weeks in the summer and we love when those things are happening so we can offer them to people, but doesn't mean that Joe and I are able to do it every week. So the different participation options once they've done their project, as many of you know, is the Scioto County Fair, and that includes our pre-fair judging with our award ceremony and our fair exhibition, and then our state fair participation. So we are excited for all the kids that we have going to state. Our kids typically do pretty well at state. We're very proud of them when they go. They represent us well. But it's anything from livestock to sewing to scrapbook, as you can see from some of our members last year. So great opportunities at the state level for our kids. And again, if this was in person, we'd stop and ask you if you have any questions. But for the, I don't know, we could probably say it 500 times. If you have questions, please call our office. All right, now it looks like we're ready for the child abuse and neglect.
So everybody take a deep breath. If you're sitting here watching the video and you need to stand up and like shake it off,
Pause us, we won't be offended.
yes, because we know that we are cramming a lot of information in a very short amount of time. But again, we hope that it's beneficial for you to be able to get this information this way and, that it just works better for your schedule. So now we're going to go into our youth activities and programs, recognition and reporting training. This is if you've been a volunteer for the last 13 years now, I think that this has been in place. You've seen this training before, and we will continue to do it every year. It's required by the university for anyone who works with vulnerable populations, which can be youth or senior citizens or those with special needs. So because you guys are 4-H volunteers, you work with a vulnerable population. So our objective with this is to familiarize you with OSU's protection policy and the standards of behavior that you sign working with youth virtually. We know that most of our clubs aren't working with youth virtually now. We hope that you are all meeting in person unless there's, some special circumstance where you need to do something virtually with folks, that's okay, but all of your meetings now should be back in person. We will define child abuse and neglect. We'll identify the 4 main types of child maltreatment. We'll help you recognize indicators of abuse and neglect, and then learn OSU's reporting requirements, and then know how to report and what information you need, and then help you become aware of what happens after a report is made. So this is just shows you the policy, and that is a link. I'm sure you're not going to be able to remember that link, but it does let you see that Ohio State University does actually have an official policy. You may hear Abby and I refer to it as policy 1.50 because that is the number on their policy through the university. It does come through the Office of Institutional Equity, and so that's where we get the directive to teach this to all of our volunteers. And saying that, Abby and I have to go through this training every year as well. So it's not just you guys. We go through the training, even though we teach the training, we have to go through the training as well every year. So you are not alone in having to attend these trainings every year. So the training, it goes to just verify that it applies to faculty, staff, appointees, students and student employees, and volunteers. And so that's why you guys fall into that, and that's how we fall into it. So the volunteer requirements through 4-H, the university requires program registration, which is your club being registered through 4-H online. If somebody from the Office of Institutional Equity needed to get a hold of a volunteer because they had a question about something that a club was doing or where they were meeting or something like that, they would have access to find you through the 4-H online system. We do require that our volunteers all sign a standards of behavior annually. And so that is a part of your enrollment as a volunteer. When you enroll through 4-H online, there is a little checkbox. There's like a link that you can click on to read the standards of behavior. And then there's a little checkbox that says, I have read and understand the volunteer standards of behavior. And so when you check that box, you are indicating that you do know and understand that standards of behavior. Every 4 years, you as a volunteer will need to complete a fingerprint background check through BCI, and we send notification out to you when you are due for those. When you get that letter of notification from our office, please go get it done as soon as you can. Another thing to keep in mind, when you get that letter and you go get your background check done, it's a good idea to enroll before you go get the background check done. Because once you get the background check done, the results from it get sent to an office on Ohio State's campus, and they then log into 4-H online to activate you. If you're not enrolled, there's no one to activate. And so that's where sometimes our people's background checks get lost. And it's because if they're not an active enrolled person waiting for their background check, when the people from the office on campus go to say, yes, their background check went through, there's nowhere for them to record it because you are not currently enrolled in the system. So that's just something to keep in mind. It's just kind of one of those things that's tricky, but making sure that you enroll before you get that background check done just makes the process go smoother. Then you have to attend annual training, which you're doing right now, and then the accountability for going through all of this. Abby, if you want to jump in anytime, feel free. But if you want me to keep going, I can keep going too.
You're a pro at this, Joe. I'll let you go and then I can do the next one.
Okay.
You know more of the backstory on this than I do.
Okay. Well, and so why annual training? The reason that we have the annual training, it started many years ago when there were actually some football camps at Penn State University where youth were being abused, and someone witnessed the abuse happening. A football coach witnessed it. He reported it to his superior, who reported it to his superior, who reported it to the dean, and then they reported it to the president of the university, but nobody reported it to the police, and it continued to happen for like 20 years, and many youth were abused over those 20 years. The university faced a huge lawsuit, and many kids were harmed over the course of time. Also, you look at this headline, the Boy Scouts reach an $850 million settlement with tens of thousands of sexual abuse victims. That was just from 2021. So that's an even more recent case. But the reason that Ohio State requires all of our folks to go through annual training is to try to avoid these types of things happening. Ultimately, we're a youth development program, and so the safety of the youth in our program is our top concern above everything else that we do. And so making sure that those youth are safe. And then, of course, Ohio State also wants to make sure that they are not liable for any oversights or any things that are overlooked. So they want to make sure that all of the folks that are affiliated with Ohio State University and 4-H being a part of Ohio State, that everyone knows and understands their responsibilities to report any types of abuse.
All right, so for our standards of behavior, Joe already touched on this, but it does have to be signed annually, and it sets expectations for positive behaviors. So in a way, it's our fine print of being a volunteer, but it is super important. We do expect that you follow these standards of behaviors, whether you memorize them and read them before bed every night, or you do just check the box. You are expected to follow these behaviors, as well as letting us know if you feel another volunteer is not, because this is something that Joe and I have had come up where we can't help any of our clubs or support them if we don't know of something going on. But everyone is expected to follow these behaviors. It does prohibit illegal, harassing, and abusive bullying behaviors, and intentionally placing yourself on a one-on-one situation with a minor. So we know that that can be hard sometimes, just in different situations. You know, we've been left before where we try to stay together, but if one of us needs to take off, we always try to do our best to never put ourselves in a situation. None of this is intended to scare you as a volunteer. We don't want anyone scared off from being a volunteer. We want to protect you as one. And so this is just some ways that we really want you guys to be aware of and to follow so that you are protected to the best of OSU's ability. And in the beginning of 2021, they added that OSU Extension volunteers will not possess or consume intoxicating substance, including drug or alcohol, while responsible for the care, custody, and control of 4-H participants. It's always been prohibited. However, it's now directly stated. And this includes, you know, if you have a 4-H meeting and people are hanging out afterwards and you're starting to consume some adult beverages, that meeting has to come to a complete stop. It doesn't matter if you're family friends, it doesn't matter if, you know, you just are always hanging out with these people. It's really important that we separate what would be the 4-H activities from your personal activities. And then clarifications have been made on the standard of behavior. So please make sure that you note the changes on the background check. So you probably, if you're following our Facebook page, you've seen us post and post and post about the background checks. That is because if you have a break in service, so if you don't get that background check done in time and it's lapsed, you will have to have it done again and have to complete a new volunteer training again. There's also something in there about disclosing any of your convictions. So if for some reason you click a yes that's not supposed to be a yes, Joe and I will be notified from the state that we need to look over that and make sure that any of those red flag behaviors were hopefully just a misclick. But we are watching for those things. So please just be aware of that as you're looking through that paperwork. And just some 23 revisions that they did last year. It's just really clarifying some of those languages. So please make sure you do look through it. Like I joked about, I know we're all guilty of checking boxes and saying, yes, I read it. I agree to the terms and conditions. But this is one document that you really want to read so that you are clear on what the expectations of a volunteer are.
I'm gonna have you just skip the working with youth virtually because we're not technically supposed to be doing that anymore anyhow. So it still applies if you are working with youth virtually. Just know that everything that we're saying still applies. OSU's definition of abuse is when a child has suffered or faces a substantial threat of suffering any physical or mental wound, injury, disability, or condition that reasonably indicates abuse or neglect. This includes any conduct of a sexual nature that may be harmful to a child's mental, emotional, or physical welfare. And there are 4 types of maltreatment. Those include neglect, emotional abuse, sexual abuse, and physical abuse. And we're going to go through each one of those here. So neglect is the failure of an adult to provide for a child's basic educational or medical needs, and it can include all of the things listed here. So neglect is, you know, sometimes when a child is neglected, it's not neglect because the family is choosing to neglect them, but maybe they just don't have the means or capability to help take care of themselves and their child. So, you know, there are lots of different instances. It's not our job to judge or try and determine why. It is just our job to report anything that we suspect or see and make sure that that child then gets the help they need. Emotional abuse is a pattern of harmful interactions between an adult and a child. That can include criticizing, belittling, or rejecting. And for it to be emotional abuse, it's a chronic act that interferes with the psychological and or social development of that child.
And I think with this too, we would just caution you. I know it's easy to joke with our kids sometimes, but you do just want to be aware of that, of what you're saying to a kid. If you are making jokes or even maybe another adult of what our kids are seeing.
Yes. And some kids can take joking very well and others do not, and they don't understand sometimes. So, you know, it's just differences in personality sometimes people can receive things in different ways. Sexual abuse is when a person uses power and directly involves the child in any sexual act, involves the child in pornography, or forces the child to witness sexual acts. Any sexual activity with or inflicted upon the child. The act may be for the sexual gratification of the perpetrator or a third party. Sexual abuse is never okay for a person in a position of power to have a romantic or sexual relationship of any nature with a minor, regardless of the age of consent, in Ohio being 16. So being a 4-H volunteer or a camp counselor or a judge, trainer, any of those things in the 4-H program, that is considered to be a person of authority. So even if we have someone who has just aged out of the 4-H program and they're 19 years old, they cannot engage in a romantic relationship with a 4-H member who is 18. Even though that 18-year-old is an adult, the volunteer is considered to be a person in power over that 4-H member, and so it is illegal. Physical abuse is any physical injury inflicted other than by accidental means. And that's where you get into, is it abuse or was it an accident? As I've said, it's not our job to investigate things, but these are some things that you need to consider. The severity and nature of the injury, where is it? What is the size and shape? Does the story that the child tells you, does that match the injury? Like if you say what happened and they say I tripped and fell, well, if it's, a huge bruise in the center of their abdomen, um, you know, that may not indicate that they tripped and fell. A skinned knee or scraped hands, that kind of stuff would definitely indicate that they tripped and fell. So things like that, the story matching what the injury is can be a red flag. And then is the injury consistent with the child's abilities? If children are trying things that are beyond their abilities, yes, they may be getting hurt. But those are just things that may pop into your brain as you are kind of examining the situation you may be in. How many injuries does the child have and how often are they injured? Those are all things when you're thinking about physical abuse versus being accidental versus intentional. These photos and little graphics are the shapes that some different instruments could leave on the skin if a child was hit with an object or struck with an object. And of course, the photo there shows, shows some pretty wicked looking marks on that child's legs. And so could those marks be from walking in the woods and getting scratched by branches or shrubs, or do they look like something more severe? No, generally a youth would stop after the first scratch. These appear to have force behind them, indicating that they were abusive. Also, when considering abuse versus accident, things to remember, opinions are subjective by those making decisions about the alleged abuse. So that includes law enforcement, social workers, prosecutors, judges. They all have different viewpoints. Again, it's not our job to investigate. If you think something looks like abuse, you report it. Corporal punishment is legal in Ohio. However, if something to you seems excessive, you report it. Abuse is a non-accidental injury, so it's something that was intentional. And those are just kind of the things to think about. Indicators of child abuse or neglect include bruises, welts, suspicious marks, burns, excessive sunburn, illness, bites, the child's behavior, the child being in hunger or in pain. If they're excessively tired or tardy for things, their clothing appropriateness. There's a whole list of indicators that you can look up at Family Safety and Healing. And if you have any questions, you can check things out on that site. As far as the indicators go, parents may appear disinterested. They may fail to return calls or make appointments for that child. They may become angry and threatening or defensive. They could refuse to discuss the child's problem. They may refer to the child as different, bad, rotten, something negative. Or on the flip side, they could be overly protective. They may not want that child out of their reach or their earshot because they may be afraid the child will say something to someone. So if a child confides in you, there are some do's and don'ts. We do want you to remain calm. We don't want you to ask leading questions. We don't want you to investigate. We don't want you to promise not to tell because you have to tell. So we do not ever want you to break that child's confidence. You want to tell them that you promise you're going to help them. You're going to get them help, but you don't promise not to tell. We do want you to take action and we do want you to maintain confidentiality. So when it comes to reporting, they have changed this a little bit. It used to be that you had to make several phone calls. Now you need to make one call. If the child is in imminent danger or in a life-threatening situation, call 911. If it's non-life-threatening situation, then you're going to call Children's Services. There is a 24-hour hotline, 855-OH-CHILD, or preferably call Children's Services in the county you're located in where the abuse is occurring. Like when we're at 4-H camp, if we witness something or see something at 4-H camp, we would call Children's Services. We've called Children's Services in the county that the child is from if it was abuse that had occurred, that they were saying occurred in their home county. Or if it's abuse, if something would happen at camp, thank goodness, knock on wood, we've never had that happen. But if something happened at camp, then we would call Children's Services in the county that the camp was at. So just know that you call the Children's Services where the abuse happened. Please note the names of whoever you talk to because you will need that for the report. Do you want to do these, Abby?
Sure. When you make that call, you want to make sure that you have the name, age, and address of the children, the name, address of the parents, and the person you suspect is abusing or neglecting the child, and the reasons that you suspect abuse, neglect. The really important thing is that not all of this is needed to make a report. So if you're not sure you have enough information, still make sure that you are erring on the side of the safety for the child. So make the report even if you only have pieces of this information. We do not, as Joe mentioned, want anybody to be investigating anything or asking questions. That's just not our jobs in this. We are just reporting, and you are required to report within 1 business day. A volunteer should contact a county professional and we can help you report it or get a hold of those people like Joe mentioned. You can also do it through online. So there is a webpage with the youth activities and program with OSU to report child abuse or neglect. And that will take you to these pages here where you can fill it out online if you would prefer to do that. It is mandated per the Ohio Revised Code. So it's in the official or professional capacity of being a 4-H volunteer, and it's suspected or knowing that there is something going on. It's a moral and ethical duty as well. And giving your name is not required. They do appreciate that just because it helps with the case, but it's not required by the Ohio Department of Job and Family Services. You are protected though under the Ohio Revised Code, and so you do have immunity from civil and criminal liabilities for any reports if you made them in good faith. And you have protection through the Ohio State University's whistleblower policy. And what to do if you're confronted by a parent without directly telling you to lie. We highly encourage you to not say anything. Do not engage in anything because you are just reporting based on either what a child told you or what you suspect. If you haven't investigated it, as we've talked about, then there's really not a whole lot to tell other than you did do the reporting. And so we just encourage you to not share that with anybody else, whether that be another volunteer or anyone, maybe another club member. We hope that that's not actually being discussed outside of you feeling the urge to report and you report. Beyond that, we really hope it doesn't go any further so that there aren't any confrontations or anything of that nature. Our trends due to COVID-19, we did see that the child abuse and neglect reporting did go up across the state did go down because we didn't have the contact like we are able to have now. So it just goes to show that you are the people that are close to these kids and that they may confide in you, and it can be what helps them and protects them. So we do want to take this responsibility seriously. Joe, do you want to do this one after the report is made? What happens?
Sure. So after a report's made, these are some potential things that could happen. So it could include intake of that child or risk assessment, investigation, or ongoing involvement through children's services. They may have protective supervision, or custody placement legal action. There may be a case plan developed with ongoing reviews. And the most severe thing usually is permanency placing or adoption of that child. Usually Children's Services is trying to make sure that the child stays with their family. And if it's something that a family, in a neglect situation, they try and make sure that the family is getting the services they need to be able to provide for those kids. But if it's, another type of abuse or whatever, we hope that they're taking their child's best interest to heart and trying to protect that child. With that, yay, we're done. So what we do want to remind you, now that you have watched this video all the way through, you will be receiving,
with us.
Yes, you stuck with us to the end. You will be receiving a link to a survey for you to complete with a few questions, just to verify that you completed this training. When you receive that link, then you will complete it. It will send the results back to us. It's not like it's a test that you have to pass or whatever. They're very simple questions, but just to verify that you completed your training. And then you can you complete that link, send it to us, then we will give you your credit for completing your annual training for 2024. So with that,
again, we just thank you guys so much for all that you're doing out there with our clubs, all that you're teaching our kids, all that you are just growing them. We see it from year to year. So we're excited for another year of 4-H. And for the 500th time, please call us if you have any questions. Thank you guys.
thank you.